If you want to PR your next half marathon, or maybe you want to run a 118 or just get faster at this distance, I have two things that are going to help you that I learned when I ran a 118:38 half marathon. And to give you a little bit of perspective, I had ran two 120-mile weeks in a row leading up to this race, and that's not what helped me. The volume is good, that's great, but in fact, I think that almost got in my way when it came to this race. Like, I was already way deep into a training hole, and I just kind of signed up for this race and was like, let's see what I can do. I was a little kind of fresh off of a marathon as well, so I ran a sub-3 marathon in October, did rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, which was 50 miles a couple weeks later, and then went into this half marathon. And so I was kind of already, I think I would have ran a half marathon faster if I wasn't doing as much volume as I did. So it's not about running more, at least in this video. Yes, you need volume, you need to be trained, but there's two things I'm going to talk about that really helped me. And the first thing I want to talk about is I rode the fitness off of a past race. So I was training for the St. George Marathon, and I wanted to run a sub 3 hour marathon. And so I spent like 4 months training speed work, things like that. And then about a month later was this half marathon. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time to train for the half marathon. In fact, it was impulsive for me to just sign up and run this and try and PR. I could have used it as an easy run day, but I wanted to see what I could do with all this like fitness. And so that's what I'm trying to get at, is if you want to PR a race, what you could do is just ride the fitness off of a past race. So as an example, maybe you stitch a 10K training plan, so you run a 10K and you do speed work and whatever, and then a month later you have a 5K or a half marathon or whatever it might be, right? There's definitely something to be said about overtraining and doing too much, and I've experienced that plenty of racing way too much and trying to give my best effort on every single race I sign up for, opposed to dialing it back and having an easy day. But you could stitch 2 or maybe 3 races together and then just make sure you recover from that and give yourself some time off or reduce your volume. So if you want to PR something, maybe consider riding, maybe you have a race already and you see that there's another race a month or a couple weeks later that you could ride that fitness into that race. And I think that's something that helped me a ton with the Snow Canyon half marathon I ran that 118:38. The other thing that I think is helpful when it comes to trying to PR a race or run a really fast race is the conversation in your head. And this is something that plenty of runners talk about, but there's a key thing I want to hit when it comes to this type of point I'm going to make. When I got into this race, when I signed up and I realized I had ran 2 120-mile weeks in a row leading up to this race, I was in my head immediately. I was like, I don't know if I can do very well with this. And when I started the race and the gun went off, at like a quarter mile in, there was a rock in my shoe, which pissed me off. And so I had to like kind of pull off to the side of the road and take the rock out. And then as I kept running, I just could feel the fatigue. And so my mind was so beat. Like, I was just really negative, and I started to think like, well, maybe I should just back off. Maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe it's too much. And there was a moment where I asked myself this question, and this is something you can ask yourself later in a race or maybe in life. And the question I asked myself was, well, how cool would it be, despite all the struggle I'm going through, if I still PR'd? And that question just lit this fire. It was like, yeah, I'm dealing with shit. I already have a rock in my shoe. I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm overtrained. I don't feel good. I didn't sleep well. But what if? And I love that question. I love the question of what if. What if I can? That to me inspires me. That makes me want to go harder. That makes me want to do more. That makes me want to be better. And I don't just mean harder and pushing yourself, because I don't think you constantly need to grind yourself into a pulp. I just mean doing the right things. Maybe it's like, what if I recover and I feel better, right? It can be taking your foot off the gas pedal. But really the question is, what if? What if I could? And that inspires me. And so when I had that question come up in my mind about a mile or two in, I just committed. I leaned in, and the race was downhill, so that definitely helped. So consider getting a really downhill course. And I just leaned in, and about halfway, at the halfway point, I just felt better. It was the strangest thing to me, because all the things were pointing to me not doing well, not having a PR, the overtraining, not sleeping well, kind of fresh off of the 50 miler, right? And I kept asking myself, well, what if I could? What would that be like? What kind of confidence, energy, inspiration would I get from this? And I got plenty. I remember finishing that race and I immediately dropped down and started doing push-ups because I just had this energy and this source of fire that was like, look at what's possible when you lean in and you believe and you don't let your mind dictate what's about to happen. And that's what I think is more valuable than writing fitness or specific training, is the fact that I understand more today than I did back then the power of the conversation in your head, and not just affirmations, but asking yourself really good questions that keep your mind open and inspire you. Hopefully you got some value out of this video. I hope you PR at your next race. Let me know if this is helpful or maybe what kind of other content you want to see when it comes to running. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.